The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. It's Monday afternoon, which means there's a lot of football to get to from Week 15 in the National Football League. What an interesting week it was in the National Football League. I called it beat down weekend in the National Football League because if you didn't step it up, then you got beat down in Week 15. It's as simple as that. Teams had opportunities in football games. They didn't take advantage, and the other team didn't waste time jumping on them in these football games. Of the 15 games that have been played in Week 15 thus far, 12 have been decided by 10 points or more. So that means only 3 games on the slate in Week 15 were decided by 1 score or less in this week of football. Amazing. It has not been a week like this. Nothing even remotely close to this all season long. And here we are, Week 15, when teams are supposed to be playing some of their better football. Here we are with blowouts all over the place. The only 3 games that were decided by 1 score or less was the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys, and the San Francisco 49ers and the New England Patriots. And that game was out of control for a while there before the Patriots made a furious comeback. So we really had a lot of games that got out of hand. A lot of points were scored in this week. And so let's get into the action that occurred in Week 15 of the National Football League. And let's talk about beat down weekend in the National Football League. Because if you didn't step up, you got beat down. Let's talk about the teams that didn't step up, ended up getting beat down. Let's talk about the teams that did the beating. So let's get into the weekend that was and go slate skating so that we can get into Week 15 and really probe into these beatdowns that occurred in Week 15 in beatdown weekend and see what teams didn't step up and why they were beat down by their opposition in Week 15.
The weekend.
That was.
We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating.
So the first game up on the slate was supposed to be a great matchup between 2 division winners. What we got was an annihilation at the hands of the Atlanta Falcons. The New York Giants traveled to the Georgia Dome to take on a mad Atlanta Falcons team who had lost on the road a week ago to the Carolina Panthers. They come home having not lost all season in the Georgia Dome, and they were looking to get back in the winner's circle were the Atlanta Falcons. Haven't really tasted a lot of defeat this season. They don't like the taste of it. And so they were looking to get that winning feeling, that winning taste back into their mouths. Here come the Giants strolling into town, coming off of a huge win at home over the New Orleans Saints, where they scored 52 points. They were looking to try to get on one of those patented New York Giant hot streaks down the stretch and see if they could propel themselves into the postseason and possibly make another run at a Super Bowl championship. They thought it started last week and they were going to go into Atlanta and keep steamrolling. Well, they were wrong. Second play of the game, the Giants, Eli Manning throws an interception picked off by Asante Samuel deep in Giant territory. Couple plays later, Michael Turner is in the end zone, and just like that, it's 7-0. Giants get the football back, and you knew they weren't going to go away quietly. So the Giants march down the field, and Lawrence Tynes, who's been pretty sure-footed for this Giants team all season, misses a chip shot field goal. So you say to yourself, could we get off to a worse start than that? First possession, interception leads to a touchdown. We drive down the field. We get a little bit of confidence. We don't have anything to show for it because our field goal kicker misses the attempt. So they're struggling early in this football game are the New York Giants. The Atlanta Falcons, get the football back. They drive the length of the field again after the missed field goal by Lawrence Tynes. And this time they find Tony Gonzalez, does Matt Ryan, in the back of the end zone on third down from about 14 yards out. Touchdown. Just like that, it's 14-0 now. Now, if you're the Giants, you need to respond, and you need to respond quickly because this thing could get out of hand. And again, you're clinging to the NFC East lead by just a game. You can't afford to lose. So you got to make a go of it. You got to turn your fortunes around in this game, get back into this football game and see what you can do. So the Giants get the football back, throw a couple passes. Eli Manning is picked off by Thomas Deku. It was a fabulous pick. A diving interception leads to a field goal. It's 17-0. Atlanta Falcons up. One of the Achilles heels for the Giants in this game, especially in the first half, was their inability to convert 3rd and 1. They had 3rd and 1 twice in the first half. They were unsuccessful on both attempts, and so they went for it on 4th down both times and were unsuccessful both times. And really, those were the turning points in this game. You could look at the interception, you could look at the missed field goal, but when you go for it on 4th down, especially when you're in field goal range and you don't pick it up, not only is it a sudden change of possession, not only is it a momentum killer for you and a momentum boost for the opposition because they stopped you, you're also taking points off of the scoreboard. And really, it wasn't necessary in this game. I thought that Tom Coughlin unnecessarily rolled the dice in this game early on. He could see where this was going, though. In his defense, the other team is scoring touchdowns. It's already 17-0. It's already 14-0. You see where this thing is heading. You know you're going to need more than field goals to keep up with this high-octane Atlanta Falcons offense. And so I see where the logic is, but at a time when you're struggling, you don't have any points on the scoreboard. As a player, you just want to look up on the scoreboard and see some points. You want to see something other than a donut. And going for it on 4th down and not getting it when you're in field goal range. Now, look, another thing that you have to take into consideration, your kicker already missed. And it was a relatively easy field goal that he missed. And so, over the last couple of weeks, Lawrence Tynes has been shaky. And they're not used to that. And so, that plays into the mind of a coach. Giants were 0 for 3 in this game on 4th down attempts. And that really told the story about the Giants in this game. And that all goes back to the lack of trust in your field goal kicker. As a coach, it plays a mental trick on you. It's a mental hurdle that you have to come across. And you have to leap over if you're a coach. Do I kick the field goal with a kicker that's struggling, or do I just go for it? He elected to go for it. What you do when you do that is not only do you give the other team momentum, you kill whatever momentum your team was building. Because when you get a stop on 4th down, if you're a defense, it sends the whole sideline into a tizzy. And you're excited. You just got to stop. You got off the field when the team looked like they were going to be able to drive the football down the field. It's a huge stop, huge turn of events, and now your offense gets the football back. They get to come on the field and see what they can do. So it's huge when you go for it on 4th down and you don't get it. And in this case, it also took points off the board because you're in scoring position. So those 4th down attempts, and I get it. I see the rationale behind Tom Coughlin's decision. You watch these Atlanta Falcons in this game, and they're scoring points. They're scoring touchdowns. You know you're going to need more than field goals to keep up. You're going to need 7s. So I understand the logic from that perspective as well. But when you're a player, sometimes you just want to look up on the scoreboard and see something other than a donut. And when you continuously look up and the other team is steady adding points and you still look up and your team still has nothing, it's tough. It's tough to push forward and try to do whatever it is you need to do to help your team climb back into the football game. Sometimes you just need to see something other than a donut on the scoreboard. A 3 would be nice, a 6, a 7, something. And in this game, it didn't happen because Tom Coughlin elected to bypass the field goal attempt and go for it on 4th down several times, and they didn't get any of them. The Falcons did a great job of getting the Giants off the field on 3rd and 4th down and proved to be the difference in this game. the Atlanta Falcons really took it to the Giants. And they got the win 34-0. Did the Atlanta Falcons in this game. You're a division leader, as the Giants were coming into this game. How do you lose 34-0? This is the time of the season where you need to be playing some of your best football, not some of your worst football. This was a train wreck for the Giants. You can't show up in Week 15 and get trounced 34-0 on the road. I don't care who you're playing. That's inexcusable if you want to make it to the postseason. This isn't Week 3. This isn't Week 7. It's Week 15. 34-0 losses shouldn't happen in Week 15 if you're a team with aspirations of making the postseason. This was a disgusting loss by the Giants. And for the Falcons, this was a vindicating win. What this said was this was a message to the NFC. And everyone in the NFC, including the Giants, heard it loud and clear. You can say what you want about our 12-2 mark. You can say it's soft, or that we're not that good of a team, or we don't blow people out. You say what you want. But if you want to get to the Super Bowl, you got to go through us. And in order to go through us, you got to come to the Georgia Dome. And let me remind you, in case you weren't paying attention, no one's beat us in the Georgia Dome this season. Ask the Giants how hard it is to come into the Georgia Dome and get a win. They made a statement. You say what you want, but you got to come to the Georgia Dome. You want to come out of the NFC as the team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl? You got to come through us. And the only way you're going to come through us is coming through this Georgia Dome. And we don't lose at the Georgia Dome. We don't lose at home. Good luck. They made it clear. They're getting home field advantage throughout. This was a statement game, and they had a message, and the whole NFC heard it with a resounding thud. It resonated throughout the whole NFC. And the Giants, this was a terrible loss. A great win for the Falcons, a debilitating and deflating loss for the Giants. They absolutely did not show up in this game, and they got trolloped. 34-0. Let's take a look at the mistakes. And in looking at the mistakes in this game, the Giants, you can see where they lost the game. They lost the game right here. Mistakes. The Giants had 6 of them in this football game. And really, a lot of them stemmed from not getting points on the scoreboard. There were about 4 5s and 2 10s. And that's the bottom line. 5s are acts that take points off the board or help put them on for the other team. And they did plenty of that in this game. You had a field goal miss, which took points off the board. You had a 4th down attempt that took points off the board. You had 2 4th down attempts that took points off the board. Eli Manning threw 2 interceptions that led directly to 10 Atlanta Falcon points. So, I mean, those are 5 of your 6 mistakes right there. When you don't get points, when you have a chance to score, that's what happens. And they were in the red zone on 2 of those occasions where they didn't get anything. You don't get anything and you're in the red zone, that's a problem. And that's where the 10s come from. The 10 is not scoring points in the red zone, and they didn't do that in this game. And that's how you lose the game 34-0. Giants are now 8-6 on the season. And if the playoffs started today, not only are the Giants no longer your leader in the NFC East, they're not even in the playoffs. If the playoffs started today, they would be on the outside looking in. They're not even a 6 seed. They're no longer division leaders. Those are now the Redskins. So they got their work cut out for them now. The only thing they can do now is just win. It's going to be tough sledding for this Giants team because you go on the road and lose 34-0. That really eats away at your pride and your ego. And now they got to pack it up again because they got to go back on the road and play a mad Baltimore Ravens team that's lost 3 in a row. So maybe the Giants can get well next week against a Baltimore Ravens team that's struggling, but I don't like their chances on the road after this showing that they put forth against the Atlanta Falcons in Week 15. But we'll see. But the Falcons, they're 12-2 now, and they're 1 step closer to home field throughout. And after this game, I can't really see the Falcons not locking up home field advantage throughout. This was an impressive win by the Falcons and a statement made by these Atlanta Falcons. And it was heard loud and clear by the rest of the NFC. You take a look at the next game up on the slate. Another game that had playoff implications. Another game that wasn't close at all. The Minnesota Vikings traveling to St. Louis to take on the Rams. I said it on the preview on Friday. Stop Adrian Peterson. Stop AD. If you don't stop AD, he'll do exactly what his nickname says. He'll run all day. So the Vikings start out the game, and Christian Ponder is using his legs to escape, buy time, run if needed. And he really took the Vikings down the field with his legs on that first possession. And he capped it off with a touchdown run. He broke a tackle. He ducked under a St. Louis Rams defender. Stumbled his way into the end zone, dove, and got in. Touchdown. And so just like that, the Minnesota Vikings take a 7-0 lead in this football game. Back come the Rams. Drive down the field. Throw a fade pass to Brian Quick. He catches a touchdown pass. Nice catch by the rookie out of Appalachian State. He's a big body guy. That's something that he needs to perfect because that can be his calling in the National Football League. He's catching those fade routes. He went up and made a beautiful grab, tied the football game up at 7. And then it just went all downhill from there. They started out this game playing some great defense. And I said on the top of the show on Friday, against this Minnesota Vikings team, priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all should be stop Adrian Peterson. If Christian Ponder wants to go 24 of 32 for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns, so be it. If he beats you, then you just got out-executed. But it shouldn't be an Adrian Peterson field day. Shouldn't be the Adrian Peterson show. Shouldn't be AD running all day. Because if that happens, you're going to lose the game the same way all the other teams that have lost to the Vikings lost the game. Which is allowing Adrian Peterson to dictate and control the game. This team is terrible on offense outside of Adrian Peterson. He's seen 8-man fronts. He's seen 9-man fronts. He's seen 10-man fronts. He's seen it all. And they still block. And they still open up a hole. And he still makes it happen. So your goal is to try to bottle him up. Contain him. You're not going to stop him. Just contain him. Don't let him break loose a 50, a 60, a 70, a 80 yard. He's going to get a 12-yard game. He's going to get a 27-yard game. Don't let him pop you for 47, for 57, for 72, for 67. The Rams had him early in this game. After tying it up 7-7, it happened. And after it happened, the game was never the same. Christian Ponder drops back and on delayed draw handoff gives it to Adrian Peterson. And then Adrian Peterson went to work. Up the middle he went, stumbles into his blocker, his lead blocker on the play, Jerome Felton, runs up his back, bounces it outside after that, up the middle, off to the races, 82 yards, Adrian Peterson, all day, down the field, touchdown. And from that point on, you knew the Rams were in trouble. After starting the game, really bottling him up, 5 rushes, no yards, he gets 82 on 1 carry, and he was going to work after that point. The game, like I said, the game really changed after that. Because Vikings go up 14-7 on the 82-yard touchdown run by Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson! And then, the ensuing possession, Sam Bradford fumbles. That turns into a Vikings field goal. So now it's 17-7. You say, okay, now you have to weather the storm. This is a 2-possession game. You don't want this thing to get out of control. Got to put something together. Even if you just get a field goal, put something together. The next possession, 2 plays later, he throws a pick 6, does Sam Bradford, to Everson Griffin, who runs it in for a touchdown. Beautiful play by Griffin, who dropped into coverage. And then he looked like a linebacker. He looked like a safety. He looked spry on that return. Switching ball hands. You know, he looked really good. He looked like he was comfortable with the football in his hands. He takes it in. It's 24-7 now. Now the game's pretty much out of reach. Young Jeezy, Greg Zuerlein misses a long field goal. Vikings end up taking the ball down the field, getting a field goal before the half. And it's 27-7. The game's out of reach, and Adrian Peterson is still going to work. He busts off another 50 plus yard run in this game. When it's all said and done, he has 24 carries for 212 yards on the day. I mean, he went bananas on this Rams defense, and he really did it with about 3 runs. You know, you're talking about 82, you're talking about another 60-yard run, and then you're talking about probably another 18-yard run somewhere in there. So those were the backbreakers because they probably had him on about 12 to 14 carries of 1, no gain, a loss, or 2 yards. He just did damage on the other 8 to 9 carries in the game. And that was really the difference. Christian Ponder didn't turn it over. He didn't have a big day, but he was better in this game, better than he was in previous weeks. He did enough to take the team down the field, completed some passes. Again, the Vikings aren't going to go that far unless Adrian Peterson is taking them there. Christian Ponder isn't going to take this team anywhere. But he didn't need to in this game. Adrian Peterson was special once again. They get it done. Rams make a comeback, but they weren't going to catch the Vikings, who had 33 points in this game, end up with 36. Blair Walsh, their rookie kicker, 5 for 5 in this game. 4 field goals of over 40 yards in this game. So he really got it done for this Vikings team. The Vikings win this game 36-22. Take their record to 8-6 on the season. Meanwhile, the Rams drop to 6-7-1 on the season. And the Rams are out of it now. They had a faint chance of making the postseason. That's done. Vikings, if the playoffs started today, would be your 6th seed. Amazing enough. We'll talk about how that came to be, but they get it done. They're 8-6, and now they're the 6th seed in the NFC. And now Adrian Peterson is only 293 yards away from Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing mark of 2,105 yards. He's got 18-12 on the season. It's going to be a tight race down the stretch because all it takes is one more game like this, and he's going to break it, no doubt about it. If he gets that next week, if he gets another 200-yard performance next week, yeah, he's definitely breaking his record. And it's funny because ED recently came out and said that he didn't want Adrian Peterson to break his record. And you know how most of the guys who have a long-standing record finally realize that records are made to be broken, and they come to grips with the fact that it's probably going to be broken at some point. And when it's a great player that's doing the break, it's one thing if it's some scrub that just comes along and they're having a magnificent season, a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and you know they don't deserve the record. Then it's one thing to say, hey, I don't want this guy to break it. But this is Adrian Peterson we're talking about. Adrian Peterson we're talking about. And so Eric is not happy about Adrian approaching his record. I think this is something that he really wants to stand. And look, if Adrian Peterson doesn't break this record this season, I don't know if anybody ever will. It really took me a long time to realize how hard it was to get this record. I mean, you see how guys approach it, and you're saying, man, they had a phenomenal season, and they still couldn't break the record. When Jamal Lewis had 2,000 yards, when Chris Johnson had 2,000 yards, these guys really weren't even close. I mean, Jamal Lewis might have been the closest one to getting to that record, and he had an excellent season. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens fed him the football over and over and over again. I'd imagine he had way over 300 carries in that season, and he was able to get over 2,000, but he wasn't really able to come close to breaking that record. I never felt like it was in danger when Jamal Lewis approached that mark. Chris Johnson, I don't think he was ever that close. I think he just barely got over 2,000 himself. And so it's amazing when you look at that record in the context of what it is and realize, and the NFL was a different time back then too. I mean, you could get away with a lot more things than you can now. To see those numbers being put up by ED, you kind of take a step back and marvel at what he was able to do. And so watching Adrian Peterson on this track to try to break that mark, it's a phenomenal feat by Adrian Peterson. And again, if he has another game like this in the final 2, he's going to break that record. If you're Adrian Peterson, you want to have another game like this next week, kind of take the pressure off of you and your offensive line going into that last game of the season against the Packers. So this is going to be interesting because Houston gave up a lot of rushing yards to Vic Ballard and the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. They look anything like they did against the run on Sunday against the Colts, he's going to go for 200 on these guys. He's going to go for 2 bills on the Houston Texans because their run defense wasn't impressive in this game, and it hasn't been impressive over the last 3 or 4 weeks since Brian Cushing got injured. So Adrian Peterson could probably get a nice performance. He didn't even need a 200-yard performance. If he gets 170 yards, if he gets 150 yards in this game, if he just cuts this total in half as to what he needs to break this record, it's a good possibility that he'll break it because he's been putting up about 140 yards per game over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. So if he just cuts this thing in half and gets 147, he's in the driver's seat. I think it will take a performance of 120 yards or less to really put the pressure on him going into that last game. So it'll be interesting. Everyone will be watching, including Eric Dickerson, who wants this record to stand. And I don't blame him. I mean, you want to be remembered. He wasn't on good football teams. He didn't win a championship. This is the last thing that ED has to hold on to. So I'm not mad at him for wanting this record to stand. You know, I'm pretty sure the Miami Dolphins, the perfect season, the 72 Dolphins, they want that record to stand because that's what you remember them by. You take that record away from them, who are they? Everyone remembers what happened last. You wipe Eric Dickerson out of the record books here, and they won't remember Eric Dickerson for the great running back that he was. So I understand where he's coming from there, but I tell you what, if there's anyone that deserves to break this record, it's Adrian Peterson. It's Adrian Peterson. And he can do it. If Eric Dickerson ever was sweating over this record being broken, he should be sweating the most right now. And he has no one to blame but the St. Louis Rams, the team that you set the record with when they were the L.A. Rams. You wanted someone to help you preserve this record. It should have been your old running mates, the St. Louis Rams. Your old team should have been able to stand up, hold this guy to 110, 115 yards, and really make it hard on him down the final 2 games to break this record. Instead, came out and laid an egg. And really, they had good defense for the most part. On about 2/3 of his carries, it was the other 10 carries. It was the other 8 carries where he just had big explosive runs that really did the St. Louis Rams in. And so if Adrian Peterson breaks this record, Eric Dickerson need not look any further than this game against his old team as the reason why he was able to break this record. So good luck to Adrian Peterson. Good luck to Eric Dickerson. May the best man win. That's all I have to say about that. It's going to be fun watching this down the stretch. Indeed. So let's look at the mistakes in this game really quick. You see that the Vikings had 1 mistake and the Rams had 4 mistakes. Really what it all boils down to in this game is the Vikings had 1-5. They had a PI way down the field that set the Rams up for a touchdown score. So that was a penalty or any act that puts points on the board or helps put them on the board or takes them off. In that case, that pass interference play that put the ball on the 4-yard line helped propel the Rams in the end zone on that possession. So that's where the Vikings' 1 mistake came from. You look at the Rams, they had 4 in the game. They had 3 5s and an 8. And your pick 6 from Sam Bradford accounted for 1 of the 5s because that directly put a touchdown on the board for the Minnesota Vikings. You also look at the fumble that he had. That directly put a field goal on the scoreboard for the Minnesota Vikings. And then you look at him missing Chris Givens in stride for a touchdown. Chris Givens was wide open. He would have scored on that play. He missed him. So not only do you miss a receiver down the field, over 30 yards, but that was in the end zone. That would have been a touchdown. So you're taking points off the scoreboard when you do that as well. And Greg Zuerlein missed a field goal. So there you have it. 3 5s and an 8 for the St. Louis Rams. You make those kind of mistakes, you're probably going to lose the football game. They did just that in this football game. 36-22. They lose in this football game to the Minnesota Vikings. You look at the next game up on the slate. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to New Orleans to the Superdome to take on the Saints in a game that was not even close. Another one of these duds that you thought would be a shootout. You expected the Saints to score points, But you didn't expect them to score as many as they did. You didn't expect them to score them with no resistance from this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. And they came into this game clinging to faint playoff hopes. I had already written them off and said they were done. You can't lose to the Eagles at home, fall under 500 at this point in the season. There are too many teams that have the ability to win 10 games. You drop your 7th of the season, which means you can only win 9 at most. And so they were done in my eyes. They were finished. But mathematically, they were still alive. They go to New Orleans. And if there was any doubt as to whether this team was going to make a push at the postseason, they were put to rest in this game as the Saints really set the tone with the first possession. They come out, drive the length of the field, cap it off with a David Thomas touchdown catch. They go up 7-0. They really didn't look back from there. Josh Freeman had an abysmal game. He threw 4 interceptions in this game, one of them coming in the red zone. They go down the field. They don't get any points because he turns it over in the red zone with a pick. Then they get close to, the red zone, right on the fringe area. He throws another pick that takes points off the board. And mind you, these interceptions are not only turnovers, they're taking points off of the scoreboard. They just struggled in this game. And big reason why they struggled was because Josh Freeman couldn't connect. He was awful in this game. 4 interceptions, as I've said before. You can't win like that on the road in the National Football League, especially against a high-octane team offensively like the New Orleans Saints that can score points. You make mistakes. Drew Brees gets the football in his hands. And a couple extra times you're going to pay. That ended up being the difference in this game. Drew Brees was cerebral in this game. Josh Freeman was abysmal in this game. Saints 41, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 0. Ouch. And so Greg Schiano had this team playing really good football from about weeks 7 to about 12, and then it just all went downhill for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they've lost 4 straight after being 6-4 on the season. They've now lost 4 straight. It's seeming like they're getting progressively worse each and every week, with it culminating in a 41-0 drubbing at the hands of the Saints. Saints go to 6-8 on the season. Bucks drop to 6-8 on the season. And so let's take a look at the mistakes in this game. As you can see, the Bucks made 3, the Saints made 1. The Saints' one mistake was a number 1. David Hawthorne, the linebacker for the Saints, dropped a pick 6. I told you Josh Freeman had a bad game, and Hawthorne had this one in his hands. He just dropped it. He would have scored on the play had he caught it. And you look at the Bucks, they had 2 5s and an 8. Josh Freeman turned the football over in this game, and you can't do that. And he turned it over, right on the fringe of the red zone a couple of times, taking points off the scoreboard. Those are your 5s. He missed Mike Williams open, possibly for a touchdown in this game, deep. So that's where your 8 comes from. The Bucks lose this game 41-0, and it was never really close in this game. As the score indicates, the Buccaneers really never had a shot. They turned it over too many times. Josh Freeman threw 4 interceptions. You can't win that way on the road in the National Football League. So you look at the next game on the slate. The Jacksonville Jaguars traveled to Miami to take on the Dolphins. This was a sloppy game. It's what you expect out of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then the Dolphins aren't a very talented team. So you can see this game being one of those slow-played games, not a lot of action. This was a game that you knew wasn't going to be a lot of fun to watch. 2 teams really just playing for pride at this point. And the Jaguars, they're not a good football team. They're not a fun team to watch. A lot of the things that they do in the game, they're head scratchers. They self-destruct. They're already not a good football team, and then to compound matters and make them worse, they do a lot of things to shoot themselves in the foot. I'll give you an example. In this football game, they have a great opening drive, go down the field to get a field goal, because they struggle in the red zone. That's been one of their Achilles heels all season long, is the fact that they can't score touchdowns when they get in the red zone. They settle for too many field goals. And they did it again, opening drive, go down the field, only come up with 3, so they take a 3-0 lead. They force a fumble of Ryan Tannehill. So now they're in business. They have an opportunity to really do some damage in this game, really put some pressure on the Miami Dolphins. Some undue pressure on this Dolphins team that thought they were just going to show up and be able to get a win against a bad Jacksonville Jaguars team. So here they are, tied in this game at 3, have an opportunity to take the lead. This is a golden opportunity. So they get the ball deep in Dolphin territory. We're talking about inside the red zone. First play, Henny's under pressure. He throws it up. Somehow it finds Justin Blackman. He walks in the end zone. It's a touchdown. And you're saying to yourself, okay, that's a great way to convert a turnover into points. It's a great sign for them in this game if they can get 7. So they're celebrating on the sideline, and all of a sudden a flag appears. And you're asking yourself, this is a late flag. Where'd this come from? This has to be after the play is over. The touchdown's going to stand. No. As only the Jacksonville Jaguars can. It's a flag for a player checking into the game and not announcing himself to the referees and the officials in the game. So he's illegally in the game, negating the touchdown. It's a 5-yard penalty. First of all, I've never heard that penalty called a day in my life. I've watched a lot of football, probably more than most. Never seen that play or penalty called before. First time ever. I was just fascinated by that penalty being called. Never seen it before. And of course, it would have to be the Jacksonville Jaguars that committed. It takes a touchdown off the scoreboard. They go for it on 4 straight downs. They don't get it. They don't get any points on the possession. And that pretty much sums up the Jacksonville Jaguars season right there. That is a microcosm of their season. You get the ball at the 18-yard line, 1st and 10 from the 18. You throw a touchdown pass on 1st down. It gets negated because your tackle that you put in the game as an extra blocker, Guy Wimper, doesn't report to the officials. So he's in the game illegally. Illegal substitution. You get a 5-yard penalty. You move back. Your quarterback runs twice. Gets you to 4th and short. You don't pick it up. And so you don't get any points on the possession. Typical Jacksonville Jaguars football. So after forcing a turnover, you make 3 mistakes in the span of 10 minutes. My goodness. And that's the Jacksonville Jaguars for you. Tannehill was great in this game. 22 of 28. Well over 200 yards passing. Really got it done in this football game. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sharp, and I expected him to be sharp in this game against this Jacksonville Jaguars team. They get it done. 24-3 do the Miami Dolphins. Reggie Bush goes over 100 yards for the first time in a long time. And so they got it done. They got it done against a bad team at home. They were supposed to win this game. And they did what they were supposed to do. Dolphins go to 6-8 on the season. Meanwhile, the Jacksonville Jaguars are now 2-12 on the season. And what do you say? I mean, this is a bad football team. What do you say? Other than the lone bright spot, the one thing they can hang their hat on is that Cecil Shorts III is someone that moving forward will be a good player for you on this team. He came out of nowhere, and he's the best player you got right now. Because Maurice Jones-Drew hasn't played since about week 4. And Cecil Shorts III shows up every week. He had 100 yards in this game. It seems like he has over 100 yards in every game. He's their go-to receiver. He's their big play threat. And if not for him, there would be nothing to talk about with this Jacksonville Jaguars team. So quickly, we'll take a look at the mistakes in this game. As you take a look, the Dolphins had 2 mistakes in this game. The Jaguars had 3. And it's crazy because the Jags, all 3 of their mistakes came on that one possession that I just spoke about. They had a 10 because they were inside the red zone. They came away with no points. They had a 2 because a penalty took points off the scoreboard. And then they had, and that 2 really is a penalty that negates any gain over 15 yards. This was an 18-yard gain, but not only was it an 18-yard gain, it was a touchdown. So that was a huge number 2. A huge number 2. And they also had a 5, which is any act that takes points off the scoreboard or helps put them on. And of course, that penalty took points off the scoreboard. Them going for it on 4th down took points off the scoreboard. So they got all of their mistakes out of the way on one possession. And that possession changed the game. They were never the same after that possession. They score that touchdown there. Who knows what this game ends up being? Instead, they don't score there. They don't score any more points the rest of the game. You look at the Dolphins, they had 2 mistakes, and their 2 mistakes came on the same play. They were in the red zone, attempting a field goal, and all of a sudden they decide they want to run a fake. And this is the worst fake I've ever seen in my life. The punter stands up, who's the holder, of course. He stands up, and he airmails the ball about 12 yards out of bounds. I don't know if he was afraid to throw an interception because the Jaguars played it well, or if he's coached to just chuck it out of bounds if it's not there, or it just slipped out of his hands. Whatever the case may be, he just chucked it and airmailed it out of bounds by about 12 yards. And so not only are you not getting points in the red zone, but you're taking points off the scoreboard by doing it. But no worries, you're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's okay. You can get away with that. And that's what they did. They win this game 24-3. They go to 6-8 on the season. Meanwhile, the Jaguars are 2-12. So you look at the next game on the slate, and this was a big one coming into the weekend, and it was the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Houston to take on the Texans with the division on the line because the Colts weren't dead in this division yet. A win here would bring them 1 game closer to this Houston Texans team with another game between these 2 teams on the last game of the season. So if the Colts could find a way to get it done in Houston, they'd have a shot still to win this division. Meanwhile, if the Texans win this game, they win the division. Cut and dry. Really simple. Win, and it's your division. So the Texans knew what was at stake, and they came out, and they looked like a team that was poised and primed to lock up the division. They started out really hot. Andre Johnson led the charge. He was dominant in this game, and he was dominant early. And he helped take the Texans out to a 10-0 lead. So the turning point early on, or what seemed like it was going to be the turning point in this game early on, was a Donnie Jones punt, the punter for the Houston Texans. He shanks one. Pinned up back at his own end zone. He shanks the football. Goes about 29 yards. So the Colts start in business at about the Texans' 34-yard line. And they drive it down. They get to the 1-yard line. And remember, I said in this game, Andrew Luck and the Colts couldn't afford to turn it over. They can't go on the road. They can't make mistakes. They can't turn the football over. They want to win this game. And every week it seems like the Colts invent ways to turn it over. Usually it surrounds Andrew Luck. Whether he's fumbling or he's throwing a ball to the wrong color jersey, he's usually in the middle of their turnover woes. Well, not this time. They get to the 1 and Manuel DeMore puts it on the ground. Fumbles, Texans recover. And so not only do you not get points in the red zone, but you give the Texans momentum by not scoring at the 1-yard line. So Colts go back and forth with the Texans. At this point, it's 13-0. Colts drive the football down the field. Reggie Wayne catches what's about a 7-yard touchdown pass, except there's holding on the play. Holding on the Colts drives them back. They end up having to settle for a field goal. Again, you can't make mistakes. You can't turn it over. You can't take points off the scoreboard if you're the Indianapolis Colts. You're not a good enough team. You're not better than this Texans team. This is the best team in your division, and you want to win. You're on the road. You got to play flawless football, and they've done anything but that up to this point. Fumbling on the 1, having a touchdown called back because of a holding penalty. They're struggling. So they get a field goal instead of a touchdown. It's 13-3. The Texans forced the Colts to punt later on in the first half, and when you know it, they have their punt blocked by Brian Bramman. He picks it up, runs it in the end zone for an 8-yard touchdown score on a punt block, and just like that, it's 20-3. And that's an insurmountable comeback for this Colts team. If they were playing Detroit, they were playing Tennessee, they were playing Jacksonville, they'd probably be able to come back. Because that's what they've been able to do all season long against bad football teams. Spot them a 17, a 13, a 10-point lead, and then hawk them down from behind and beat them. They did it just a week ago against Tennessee. They spotted Tennessee a 20-7 lead, only before hawking them down at 21-20, giving that lead back up at 23-21, and then ultimately taking the lead for good at 24-23, winning the game 27-23. So that's what the Colts do. They spot you a lead and then they take it back. Well, this isn't the Tennessee Titans. This isn't the Detroit Lions. This is Houston Texans. This is an 11-win football team. And if you think you're going to spot them a 20-3 lead and then come back and win, you got another thing coming, especially on the road. And so I said they couldn't fall behind. I said they couldn't make mistakes. I said they couldn't turn the ball over. They did all those things. And so you do that, you lose. And that's exactly what happened to this Indianapolis Colts team as they dropped this one 29-16 on the road against the Houston Texans. What can I say? You turn it over. You make mistakes. That's what happens. That's what happens on the road against a team that's already better than you. You lose. And it's not close. And the mistakes tell the story in this game because they were costly. And I told you that sometimes mistakes on the surface don't seem as bad as they are. And other times, they're huge in the game. You know, sometimes you can have 5-6 mistakes and have them be petty ones and still overcome them and win the game and not have a problem. Other times, you can have 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 mistakes and have them be costly, have them be huge, and it costs you the game. And in this case, that's exactly what happened to the Indianapolis Colts. Let's look at the mistakes. Colts have 5. Texans had 4 in this game. But if you look at the mistakes and what they mean, Colts had 3 5s, a 7, and a 10. Now the 10 was not getting points in the red zone. That occurred when Mewelde Moore fumbled in the red zone. And so that's a 5 and a 10. You're not scoring in the red zone and you're taking points off the board. You're going in for 7 on that possession. And you get nothing. Then you look at a 7 and another 5 coming on one play. A punt that doesn't travel at least 30 yards. And in this case, it was blocked. So it didn't travel 30 yards. Not only was it blocked, but it was taken in for a touchdown. So not only is it a 7, a punt that doesn't travel 30 yards, it's also a 5 because it directly leads to 7 points for the Houston Texans in this game. I mean, those 4 mistakes right there tell you the story in this game. Huge mistakes. Andrew Luck didn't throw any picks in this game. He wasn't the cause for this loss. This was a team effort to lose this game. You get a holding penalty on a Reggie Wayne touchdown reception. Huge. That's another 5. You're taking points off the scoreboard. Ended up being a 3 instead of a 7. That's a 4-point swing there. Huge. Huge in the landscape of the game at the time. It was 13-0. If it's 13-7, all of a sudden you're right back in this game. Instead, it's 13-3. Still a 2-score game. Totally changes the complexion of the game. And there you have it. Those are the mistakes for the Colts. Those cost you football games when you're on the road. You look at the Texans' mistakes. They had a 3, a 2, a 5, and a 7. The 2 was a penalty on a long Arian Foster run that got called back. The 3 was a senseless penalty on their corner, Jackson, for a defenseless receiver hit on 3rd down that he didn't need to do. He didn't need to do it. The receiver wasn't going to catch the ball, and he hit him, got a 15-yard penalty, extended the drive for the Colts. The 7 was that Donnie Jones punt that didn't travel 30 yards that really set the Colts up to go down the field and score, getting the ball to the 1 before they ultimately fumbled it away. So that punt could have loomed large in this game. Luckily enough for them, the Colts made the mistake that really changed this game. And the 5 for the Texans was a Shane Graham missed field goal. So that was it. A lot of those mistakes by the Texans could have been bigger than what they were if the Colts didn't make mistakes of their own to kind of erase the mistakes that the Texans were making. And so the Texans get it done, 29-16 in this game. They're now 12-2 on the season, looking to lock up home field throughout in the AFC. Meanwhile, the Colts, they're okay. They're 9-5 on the season. And next week, if they go to Kansas City and get a win, they're in the playoffs. So you don't win a division. You didn't think you were going to win a division. Of course, you probably thought you had an outside shot, which you did, but you knew you weren't going to win a division. Be real with yourself. You knew you weren't going to win that division. And so the playoffs are still right there in front of you. The teams behind you are struggling. So all you got to do is win next week and you're in. And that's all that matters at this point if you're the Colts. Just win and get in to the show, and you'll see what you can do once you get there.